Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. So, I've had a particularly draining stretch of time for the last little bit here, and when that happens, I usually like to try and find something a little bit silly to make a video on so that I can take off some of the pressure. And boy howdy, did I come across something silly and also appropriately fall-themed. I always love a good aesthetic. The first thing I found was an article titled, "This is the Season of Crunchy Leaves, Chunky Knits, and Pumpkin Spice Latte Misogyny," written only just this month. This gave me a good little chuckle, but then, out of morbid curiosity, I decided to search for the terms pumpkin spice and misogyny to see what I'd dig up, and sure enough, it seems like every year someone is writing one of these exact kinds of articles. It's the darndest thing. If you want a good summary of what all these articles are talking about, let's go ahead and read the first bit from the first article I cited. "It is PSL season. That's pumpkin spice latte, keep up. Which also means it is pumpkin spice misogyny season." If you are not familiar, the idea is that there is a predominantly male tendency to mock the predominantly female enthusiasm for the arrival of spiced orange beverages at this time of year. It's derided as basic, along with rhapsodizing about crunchy leaves, chunky knits, big scarves, new boots, and other seasonal Pinterest board signifiers. If you guessed that it's all a bunch of women complaining that not everyone is universally willing to pat them on the back for, or at least have zero negative opinions on every single one of their life choices, then go ahead and give yourself 100 points because freaking of course that's what it is. What are the points good for? I don't know, posterity? Maybe if you get enough of them, you can go out and get yourself a free pumpkin spice latte. Or, something that doesn't taste like garbage. Did I just express the forbidden opinion? Well, let's just dial it back a little bit, and I'll get into that a little bit more later on. So, this first article only briefly mentions the idea of being basic, but it really doesn't say much more about what that means. Let's draw from some of the other articles now. As we know, in popular culture, the PSL has become synonymous with the basic teenage girl who plasters it over her Instagram in an autumnal aesthetic. It's certainly overdone, and we've seen it all before. Despite this, it's pretty harmless. The idea is that these women who subscribe to and partake in popular culture, are basic. They are branded as unoriginal and vain for following trends and, in turn, lose semblance of a unique personality. Okay, in the first one there, we're working with the idea of basic being overdone. If we want to just go down that route, I think it's safe to say that pumpkin spice is definitely overdone. Seriously, you have but to flip to the month of September, and suddenly 75% of the flavored anything you can find in the stores is all pumpkin spice. Pumpkin spice coffees, teas, pastries, cookies, yogurts, ice creams, you name it. And it's not that bad when you can still get other flavors of things, but in some smaller stores that sell the old runoffs from other stores, it can get to a point where it crowds out other flavors. So, in that regard, I think it's safe to say we can agree that it is overdone and therefore, hey, potentially worthy of criticism by those who don't find it to be the greatest flavor in the world. But let's look at the next idea, that women are unoriginal, vain, and lacking in unique personality because they are basic. Now we're getting into something that's a bit more of a reach, at least as far as it is connected to pumpkin spice items. Unoriginal, okay, I can give you that one on the same grounds of pumpkin spice stuff being overdone, but vanity and whether or not one's personality is unique is likely rather tangentially connected to the kinds of foods they prefer to eat. For example, someone going out and enjoying a pumpkin spice latte, even on a regular basis, just because it's a thing they like to have, is likely not someone you would think of as being vain or lacking in personality, but someone who makes a big thing about pumpkin spice lattes coming back into season and posting 38 selfies of themselves at their favorite local coffee shop with the titular drink in hand. Well, with them you might have a case. Realistically, in this case, I would go as far as to say it's not likely the drink in particular that would cause people to turn up their noses, but that's not what these authors believe. Sure, it's amusing to poke fun at cultural trends and cycles. However, this pumpkin spice hostility is a part of an issue that runs deeper than lattes and fall-themed enthusiasm. It's indicative of a normalized brand of misogyny that condemns women for enjoying feminine things, ranging from makeup to romantic comedies and, yes, pumpkin-flavored Starbucks drinks. Girls participating in any aspect of popular culture immediately brand that trend as basic. Society condemns girls who show any interest in feminine things. When young girls began popularizing certain artists such as One Direction or Justin Bieber, the quality of their music was branded as feminine and subsequently considered subpar or basic and never taken seriously. The same pattern continues with the condemnation of things like makeup, the color pink, and fruity drinks. Society does not hate these things because they are bad, they hate them because they are associated with femininity. And it makes me wonder whether it would be the same story if the main PSL-loving demographic were men. I feel like there is a bit of misdirection going on here. These authors are assuming that people are against things because they are feminine, but if we wanted to get more realistic with what people are likely against, it's the pop culture element of these things. For example, I don't think I have ever heard anyone criticize Justin Bieber because he is too feminine, but rather because his music is ubiquitous, pandering, formulaic, and because he's a bit of a trash human being. I suspect that relatively few folks capable of a cognizant argument will say that they dislike rom-coms or makeup because they are associated with women, but rather because they don't find the stories compelling, or because they don't like the way makeup can be very deceptive. And perish the thought that someone can dislike the color pink because they find it garish and loud. Must be because it's associated with women. One of the articles literally references astrology as an example of something developed in ancient time only to be ridiculed now because it's been popularized by teenage girls. As if we haven't come a long way since the ancient Babylonians developed the concept 2,400 years ago and made such advancements in science and technology that we realized that the idea of categorizing people based on the alignment of heavenly bodies is a little bit silly. Nope. Must be because women like it. Trying to say that people hate these things because they are associated with femininity is oversimplifying the issue to the point of absurdity. And as for the comment about if the main PSL-loving demographic were men, that's pretty ridiculous as well. After all, it's not like there aren't plenty of examples of manly stereotypes we can think of that women are often keen to make fun of as well. Let's not forget such classics as reckless beer-drinking frat boys, aggressive sports fans throwing nachos at the television, or inept man-children playing video games in their mother's basement. Just because you're too solipsistic to recognize that people other than you also catch flack for falling into common demographics, it doesn't suddenly make you a martyr. Maybe I have thought about this too deeply. However, my embarrassment when ordering the latte was real, and the fact that it was socially constructed wouldn't be too unreasonable to suggest. After all, the hypercriticism of the PSL does seem to be synonymous with the hypercriticism of women everywhere. First of all, get over yourself. Any worker at any coffee shop has probably made 50 pumpkin spice lattes before you showed up that day without breaking a sweat. I assure you, they are not concerned with you or your choices. Jesus, there really is a theme in these kinds of articles about these gals all experiencing some serious main character syndrome and assuming everyone else pays any attention to anything they do. Honestly, it's embarrassing. As I mentioned in my recent video about shaving one's legs, most people outgrow this tendency to assume everyone is fixated on them in high school. Trying to blame your irrational fears as being socially constructed is also a little silly, because the only reason that pumpkin spice lattes have gained some notoriety as being a basic white girl drink in the first place is because of their overwhelming popularity, particularly with that demographic. It's like being embarrassed about ordering a Big Mac at McDonald's or a Blizzard at Dairy Queen. Oh no, you ordered one of our most popular menu items. How embarrassing for you. As for the commentary on the hypercriticism of women, I have to just roll my eyes again. If you haven't noticed the constant onslaught of criticism that most men face from all angles of life these days, you're just not paying attention. Oh wait, no, you're just exclusively only paying attention to criticism that appears to target women, whether it actually does or not. Regardless, nobody in this life is free from criticism of others, and you do yourself a favor to stop acting like you're so put upon for having some societal expectations upon you. If you could gain a little self-confidence and conviction in what you're doing, you could probably realize that you're free to subvert these expectations, and that nobody is likely going to chop off your head for it. Even when teenage girls show interest in things that are considered traditionally masculine, there's still ridicule. For instance, sports, comics, and video games. Recently, particularly on the app TikTok, these are seen as pick-me, tomboy tropes. It's almost absurd to think that a girl just simply enjoys these things. This misogyny isn't only perpetrated by men. It also emanates from women who insist they're different than other girls and therefore better. Some women who don't like pumpkin spice, makeup, or rom-coms pat themselves on the back for rising above the ranks of their basic counterparts, contributing to the issue of misogyny rather than helping it. I love how that second article talks about the supposed misogyny not only being perpetrated by men, as if judgments of women isn't primarily an export of other women. Like, 99% of the people who have called me a pick-me are, well, not men. Also, you can see a clear example of the stretching of the word misogyny here, I think. It's not hatred of women to look down upon the hobbies of women. Is it very nice? Not really. Should said individuals probably learn to mind their own business? Yes. But should you call these people misogynists because they poke fun at women who like lipstick and pumpkin spice lattes? No. That is a misuse of the word misogyny. But they go even further with it. Femininity and personality are seen as mutually exclusive. Women have to choose between being one thing or the other. Feminine or funny, pretty or smart, pumpkin spice drinking or unique. When women adhere to the mold of what it looks like to be a young, typical woman, one who wears leggings, listens to pop music, and wields PSLs, people assume their personalities don't extend beyond those traits. What lies beneath this triviality, however, is an even more sobering realization. If we continuously mock teenage girls for their interests, we risk also sending this message, that their ideas are ridiculous too. The ramifications of this are potentially even more unfortunate, finding their way into the wider societal sphere. Perhaps, for example, women's underrepresentation in higher-paying professional positions is the logical progression of this early onset ridicule. Could it be that women are conditioned to believe that their ideas are not worth the top-paying wage? Good grief, these guys are going to throw out their shoulders with all the reaching. These articles have all made reference to the idea of femininity being this heavily criticized, heavily dismissed characteristic, again, as if none of them have ever read an article talking about toxic masculinity dude bros before. I think that there is a difference between someone saying, her makeup Uggs short skirts equals vapid broad, or I find, insert feminine proclivity here, to be vapid, uninteresting, not my thing, whatever. I feel like there are relatively few of the former, and the latter is generally more common. You'll note that it is a far cry from claiming that femininity as a whole is devoid of personality. If anything, I would say that one's position on the masculinity-femininity dimension is just one element of their personality as a whole. And lastly, in answer to the final paragraph, don't worry, I think we have more than enough "the future is female" attitudes prevalent in society today to prevent any little girls from ever thinking that their ideas are worth anything but top-dollar wages. Unfortunately, this seems to be true whether we're talking about a female CEO or a female barista churning out pumpkin spice lattes, but there you have it. That's enough of the articles for now. In closing, I don't like pumpkin spice lattes. This is not because I am a misogynist or because I am trying to subvert popular feminine stereotypes. It's because I happen to think that it is a flavor that tastes like crap in coffee and tastes relatively mediocre in most other baked goods. Sue me, salted caramel is the superior flavor. If you are someone who likes pumpkin spice lattes, different strokes for different folks. But if you are a woman who likes pumpkin spice lattes and are feeling persecuted for it, then it's time to calm down, stop worrying so much about what other people think about your drink choices, or any other choices for that matter, and just order your damn coffee already. Maybe go cuddle up in your Uggs and chunky knits while you're at it, if that makes you feel any better. As for the rest of you, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.